I think we're live. Let's find out for fun. Testing and such. Yeah, we'll do that. I think we're live. Yeah, good enough. Close enough. All right. So yes, comments to start. Maybe a Ken Wheeler video later. See how I feel. See how durable I am. How much of this I can stand. Yes. Hopefully this video is a little better. Frame rate wise. Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to change the setting to the highest setting just to see if it'll work better. Yeah, the YouTube doesn't tell you anything, about settings. Just doesn't tell you anything, regarding this bandwidth thing, whether you should increase it or decrease it. So I'll just put it back to high in HD and see what I get. Well, I did that, so why isn't it? Okay. Satisfactory. Well, it's second highest. All right, anyway, see if that helps any. Anyway, it is a really good point that the transverse waves in water are a surface thing. Yes, it is a point I just sort of thought of a long time ago, that we're just recognizing that this is where mathematics sort of fails, where the mathematical model fails, is in that this model is not very representative of the reality. So when they say intensity is measured on this kind of XYZ scale, that XYZ scale isn't the three-dimensional scale we live in. It's a scale of intensity times time or some other kind of thing. The dimensions aren't really the right dimensions. And it's an analogy or a metaphor, but it's not the truth. And waves don't do this kind of stuff. They do this kind of stuff. And it's important to always keep that in mind, that the mathematical model is a way of representing reality. It's not reality itself. It's not exact. Being so visible and familiar to us, I could see how that concept would have garnered more support than maybe it was due. Well, the point is it pollutes your perception, and so you start not thinking about it right. And I noticed it when I was watching the Professor Lewin video, and he was showing the sound waves. And then when they had different harmonics on top of each other, the harmonics were on top of the first harmonic. So the second harmonic was on top of the first, and then it was on top of the fourth and fifth harmonics were on top of the first harmonic. And I said, that's not how the reality is, though. The reality is those harmonics are linear, just like the first harmonic, and they don't travel that extra length. See, it makes it look like the second and third harmonics are lagging behind because they're traveling this longer wave thing. No, they're going just in a straight line, too. And so it gives you a wrong impression of reality. Do a double slit experiment. So this is Joe Chang, and that does not look promising. He's got to read more, so I have to open this and close this. Yeah, because this will stay opened if I don't close it. Right. I think that's how it's going to work. But anyway, do the double slit experiment in vacuum. Light will act like a particle, not a wave, says you. Okay, so I'm just saying, well, obviously, this is an experiment I would have hoped had already been done somewhere. So nothing can wave in vacuum space. Well, the electron experiment is kind of obviously done in a vacuum, and it is definitely doing a bar pattern. Now, I would agree nothing can wave, but I don't care whether it's in vacuum space or not vacuum space. Photons don't wave. So, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other, in the sense that the medium isn't causing the effect. The point is whether the medium has an effect on the effect. And that's the part that is still uncertain. Measure light speed in a vacuum glass bottle using 1 trillion frame per second camera. Again, just where do you come up with this crap? Those cameras don't take pictures of things. Okay, they take the picture of something a million times. So they take a million pictures of something moving very fast, and then they do a composite picture of the reality. So it's like they take a picture of a deer jumping, and they take 1,000 pictures of the deer jumping, and each picture of the deer is a little different, and they just composite the pictures together. Now that's not exactly the same thing as taking a picture of something. Nothing can, in a per second camera, you'll find the speed of light is infinite. Well, that's just a non-starter statement. It's just silly. I have nothing to say to it except that's stupid. What do you mean infinite? You mean infinitely slow? How do you mean infinitely fast? And it's instantaneous. Well, it isn't instantaneous. You're just making assertions with no evidence, which is useless. Both experiment can prove present theory of light is wrong. Win your Nobel Prize. Well, neither experiment will do that. Changing the speed of light doesn't change anything realistically about my theory, but it certainly wouldn't make any sense to me because you're not going to find any evidence of that. All right, John Gray, whose contributions are less than stellar lately. Ken has a new video on pi. Who cares? On psi. At 11 pi, no. At 11:09, he shows a tattoo on his hand which says 1 over pi to the negative third power. But in fact, this is a mathematical definition of negative powers. Negative powers. Who cares? X to minus y equals 1 over x to the minus y, to the real y, to the positive y. And by the way, psi is a number. Psi equals 1 plus the square root of 5 divided by 2. How exciting. I think he says in his video it's 5.24 or something. But yes, who cares? I'm totally uninterested. Thanks. Very exciting. Ironic that Ken Wheeler makes fun of mathematics and yet is relying on one formula, to say that's what life is. And he really says that. He says this has something to do with life on Earth. Not evolution, not chromosomes. It's just because water has a ratio. Angles in common. So if the angles were just like the pyramids in Giza, and we'd all assume that the pyramids, they knew that water was a molecule, and they knew the configuration of the water molecule. And we'd all have to become religious kooks because of that. People are just too stupid. So I have to remove this. Maybe I'll just do this. That might be easier. But it doesn't work then. So you can't do that. All right. You're a master at explaining all this in plain English. Well, whatever they say about that whole something at everything, master of none. Jack of all trades, yes. Jack of all trades, but master of none. I've learned quite a bit about all these different theories and ideas just from the year I've been watching your videos. Yes, I have learned quite a bit by doing this journey, this exploration into reality. And the more you learn, the more you see just how they really aren't looking for the truth. Not sure why it's so hard for everyone to explain this stuff. They must not truly understand it. That's the only explanation. Well, they don't want to understand this, part of it, I would say. But yes, the superficiality of their skepticism, either their scrutiny, it's just amazing that people can just say something like space is bent. They go, okay, photons don't have a location. Okay. There's just no, what do you mean they don't have a location? What do you mean? Even if I thought they were a wave, don't they have to be waving somewhere exactly? What do you mean they don't know where they are? Crazy. And they just buy it because somebody said it. Oh, what the hell did I do? Interesting. That was an effect I didn't see coming. Anyway, it looks complicated by, okay, this is Bob Tiffley, Bob the Fly. It looks complicated, but I think that's supposed to be but. It is just y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, rise over run, and b for the intercept. Oh, okay, so he's commenting on the Professor Lewin video where I basically said I don't care. I wasn't following along with the formula he was writing, and I said something like, whatever. And so he's explaining it to me. But I don't really think you need to explain it to me. I don't have a huge love affair with some of this math, in the sense that I don't think this math is the simplest form of recognizing what's important. And I don't even think they label these variables very well. I mean, x is movement in the x direction. I mean, it's not very sophisticated. Sine x is just modifying x in the mx plus b stuff. Sine waves are conceptualized as fluctuating from -1 to +1. Yes, I understand that. So they make a sideways S-shaped pattern. Duh, I know what a fucking sine wave is. But trust me, this is all just pre-algebra plus sine functions. Well, it's really not pre-algebra, so you can say something silly like that. Algebra is algebra, and certainly, even getting all that sine angle sine stuff right is a little bit complicated. And this is clearly much more complicated than that. I mean, derivatives over time, come on. It's not pre-algebra. If you break it down, it is practice remembering the patterns, but not difficult. If you break it down, it is practice remembering the patterns, but not difficult. Whatever. Oh, damn, I can't use my scroller. Kills this thing for some dopey reason. I guess I have to click on here. No, see if I click on there, then it goes, I know what I need to do. I'll just put this always on top. That'll solve it. And I suppose I should do that with the comment chat thingy. And such. All right, now we're safe, I think. All right, so that's not a terribly interesting comment, in my opinion. But, it's my opinion. Firefox, gotta scroll down. All right, let's see. So I guess the spot we need. Probably have to figure out a little better way to do this, but oh yeah, that didn't work. Went too far, so someone have to know. All right, so that's the bottom of the comment, is the top of the page. So I have to go to about there. So about there should work. Yeah, that's close enough. All right, at 425, he is describing a unit cycle, Gary. But instead of using 1 for the unit cycle, he is multiplying it by 2. 2 times sine 3x equals y. So he's still doing the same thing. Then he plots all points for y. Whatever, medians are the pi divided by stuff. 2 pi means you are at 0 on the x-intercept. Well, I understand that pi is, what the angles add up. I mean, the circle it's up to. 2 half circles equal to a pi radius. I mean, a pi circumference. And also a pi on the unit cycle. A cycle just means a cycle with a radius of 1 unit. Right. All right, multiplying, so this guy added some more crap. Multiplying the input x of a function by 3 compresses the function horizontally by a factor of 3, i.e. every x value is replaced by an input 3 times further from the origin. So the graph at all points will be moved 3 times closer to the vertical axis. Oh, that's exciting. Therefore, as a sine wave oscillates over a period of 2 pi, that would be 1 oscillation. 2 oscillations, right? 2 pi would be two circles, right? Two half circles, so 4 half circles. The oscillation takes a third of that when x is multiplied by 3. Well, I think the point was, well, he was heading for 6, so maybe 3 is half of 6. I don't know. This is all way too. It has an oscillation period of 2 pi divided by 3. I tried to explain this as clearly as I could. Well, whatever. I'm not that interested, but maybe somebody else is, but I'm not terribly interested. Concept is what I care about, and the point of the whole thing, the whole point of the resonance concept, the concept that wasn't made clear, is that resonance frequencies just mean frequencies that are not destructively interfered with. Phases. Well, I guess it's frequencies. So the harmonics are you have the first harmonic, which is the frequency that's not interfered with. It's not destructively destroyed because of the reflection is exactly the opposite of the reflection is the same as, right? Well, anyway, it's in phase with the other energy, so they're complementing each other. So they're both, the reflection's pushing up when the incoming wave is pushing up, and the reflection is pushing down when the incoming wave is pushing down. So they don't destroy each other, therefore they survive. And the waves that don't survive, the harmonics that don't fit that pattern, that is, they go up and down at the wrong moments and end up losing energy. Point is resonance really means least destructive interaction. Okay, so I guess I have to scroll. So I have to find a better system for this scrolling thing. This is not a very good system. I can open and close this thing. All right, I assume the physics distinction between being alluded to is that the Newtonian conception, Newtonian world machine. I mean, this idea of calling something a Newtonian conception, I just think so wrong. First, when Newton conceded, he doesn't really do the, I'll speculate about how it works. He did the, this is what I can prove stuff. Of a deterministic point-particle universe. So again, I don't think Newton wasn't even going that far. He just pointed out when things behaved like a corpuscle and when they behave like a wave, that those are two different things. And that light couldn't be qualified as a wave because it had too many characteristics like a particle. Should be how we interpret physics from the quantum era onward. The quantum era meaning what? The Heisenberg error? You know, do you think any of this stuff? I don't think any of these things are true. So, I mean, I don't see how any of that quantum error stuff survives into the future. I think all of it's just wrong. Okay, there is no particle that doesn't know where it is. There is no wave that does not know where it is. And interference is nonsense. Onward, because you think that the waveforms are a flaw in the interpretation. No, I think the very point you're saying, the waveforms, when the particles clearly aren't waving, they're not spreading, they're not creating a longitudinal whatever thingy field stretch or whatever. They're not doing what waves do. They're moving in a straight line as a little corpuscle. Like, now, why? How come something moving just pretty much like bullets at a frequency? I mean, that's the fair description, like a ray. How is a ray a wave? I mean, in my opinion, it's just making a terrible mess out of language when you sit there and use the word wave. You have to call it something else. A flaw in the interpretation of science is that since they came about, question mark. So this is somewhere in this very wrong run-on sentence, there's a question. The universe should somehow reinterpret physics from the quantum era onward because you think that waveforms are a flaw. Yeah, I think it's really destroys your model if you do something that's fundamentally wrong, as thinking of bullets as ocean waves or thinking of bullets as bullets. Yeah, I think that's a huge difference. And it's going to screw up your understanding of reality if you don't really understand how the thing works. And certainly don't understand how photons work, in the sense that they don't work at all without electrons. Without an electron, a photon does nothing in the universe. It has no existence, has no meaning, has no anything. It's nothing without its effect on electrons. And that's why everything a photon does, essentially, is an electric thing, because it's about the electron it hits. And to deny that truth, in my opinion, there's overwhelming evidence that that's the reality. Photons have no meaningful existence except for their impact on electrons. Okay. So, Grody Eden guy again. I wonder if it would be worth the effort for you to do 1 or 2 videos on Eric Verdel, whatever, model of gravity. It doesn't have a model of gravity. So, you people, I don't know why you would force me to go try to debunk a theory that doesn't have any shape. It's some ambiguous statement, like somewhere in string theory, there's probably gravity. And it emerges out of the function of the little bits inside of the atom somehow. It's non-existent as a theory. He doesn't have a mechanism. He doesn't have a thing. He doesn't say anything except there's some kind of idea that maybe gravity is made inside of atoms or something. Why would why would I bother? I already have a very good theory of what gravity is. Why do I need to do work on an obscure nothing theory that doesn't have any shape or form? Has less shape than Einstein's silly bent space. There's an emergent property, entropic gravity. What does that even mean? The pressure causes the pressure. That's all. It's so circular. It can't come from inside of the atom. Can't come from there. Seems fairly promising to me. I don't know what you see promising in it. You'll have to show me the video where he says something that makes any sense. I saw his Big Think video. I watched 7 or 8 minutes. It was an 8-minute video, and he didn't say a damn thing as far as conventional physics goes. Yeah. Well, I don't see any threat to conventional physics because he doesn't have a theory that's in any form. Just well, maybe there's something inside the atom that makes gravity. Doesn't that count as a theory? No. Professor Walter Loon will get the Nobel Prize in experimental physics for playing Jingle Bells. So there's another John Gray comment. On a wooden homemade flute while being stoned from helium. I guess that was humorous or something. That was a trivial humorism. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tiny bits bumping around. So, yeah, well, whatever. Obviously there's big bits bumping around in space. And there's a bunch of holes, dents in the moon from the bits that bumped around. Yeah, it's a phenomenon. It's a real thing. Right. Why do the electrons do pi-u? What is that? Who said that? From what experiment is that conclusion? So what he's asking is why do electrons poo out? Why do they run out of gas? And nobody says it directly as far as, I don't know. So you have to get into all kinds of accelerator documents or some other kind of stuff where they have some evidence for this. But you can't just accelerate electrons in an accelerator and then turn the voltage off and they keep going around and around. Leave the magnets on, but turn the voltage off. They won't do it. And so they have a certain distance they can go, and then they just poo out. They run out of gas. And you can sort of get it because the only electrons that get here from the sun are ones in plasma. That is a big blob of gas, atoms and stuff. So unless they're affiliated with something, they don't go anywhere. So theoretically, you'd say there should be a bunch of electrons flying off of the sun, getting shot out. And they should travel here at pretty high speeds, and they should arrive like a photon would arrive. But they don't do that. They don't arrive from outer space like that. So it's a conclusion I've drawn based on the lack of evidence that shows electrons are even where we've used them. Like it probably would be of some use if you could get electrons to move in orbit, that you could have data points in the electron stream, and then the satellites could all communicate with each other by a bunch of orbiting electrons. So we would have something like that if it was possible. So I think it's kind of clear it's not possible. Yes, poor frame rate. Look at 215, for example. Yeah, well, rub it in, fuckhead. Thank you. As I think about this using your theory, things become clear and I start making sense. Okay, I think I left off there last time. So, I don't think we have any new comments, but I guess we'll throw this up here for now. It's strange how... What the hell is that behind it? Like there's two images on here. What's that little thing in the corner? Oh, I guess that's his icon. He has a square icon. All right, so we'll just let the chatters have this side, I guess. So I will, just in case somebody's listening this far who's at all interested in, the truth and trying to dissect it from the information that exists, I would like to have conversations with people who have some will or interest in defending conventional interpretation of the evidence. I guess you can call that an interpretation, where you think there's reason to have great confidence in this idea of a bent space, and that bent space can be converted, like matter can be converted when black holes collide into bent space, and all that crap can happen. And there's this relativity nonsense where there's time is in frames, and all that crap. And then the whole quantum bullshit of Heisenberg and Huygens and all that shit stuff. But I'd be interested in those conversations. And realistically, to do this conversation, all I need you to have is a microphone. I mean, you can just do a podcast kind of version from your end. Video would be nicer, but this software, YouTube, does work fairly well. I can give you the link to the room. We can have the conversations and debate the issues. And this, that needs to be done, and nobody seems willing to do it except for me. So, speaking of the cowards of physics, I guess we'll resort to a Ken Wheeler video. I mean, it's just such a bizarre video, because she's so... Well, the last video I made was on that pi, psi, whatever crap, and he's implying that somehow, the religious stuff, somehow the universe is constructed water molecules, and water molecules are central to life on Earth, when, it's really central to life on Earth are DNA molecules. Without those, you don't have any life. I mean, it's just silly, Lots of molecules are essential to life. And obviously the only reason why water is essential is because that's where the first life form formed, was in water. But clearly it provides a very good mechanism for creating membranes and cells and all that crap. So I'm not saying water's not cool, but I'm sure other viscous liquids could also do the job. But anyway, so let's move. But the video before that was just this. He makes well, it's like he did that stupid magnet experiment where he was implying there's a mystery to it, or rolling the little magnets across the other big magnet, and he never did the follow-up video explaining it. Why Why does he do crap like that? I mean, he's just so full of shit. Well, I mean, obviously he didn't do the remake of the videos because the people in his own comment section probably answered the question better than he would. They actually answered it correctly instead of incorrectly. So leave us. We gotta get rid of this chat windowy thing now, right? I guess put that back down below. Nobody seems to be using it anyway. And so I have to find the page without. I guess I'll have to make me go away for a minute. Ether exists. Simple experiment you can do, I guess, to prove ether. And so why doesn't he do it if it's simple? I mean, the obvious question. Obvious. If he can prove ether with his experiment, why doesn't he do the experiment and prove ether?
Okay. Greetings, cowboys and cowgirls. What's up? How you doing? How you doing? The ether. This is like screaming out Satan in the middle of a church. When you're talking to modern academic scientists, who are not scientists by definition and denotation. What they are mathematicians.
See, so he's pooping on math, and again he says that somehow his stupid little formula has this. The whole universe is about this stupid triangle. You know, a piece of geometry. So anyway, so yeah, this whole conversation is so strange because instead of realizing that it's a huge victory, that conventional science is basically creating ethers, lots of them. You know, every one of their fields is an ether, essentially, right? Bent space, clearly an ether. You can contract it and expand it. It's an ether. Electric field, magnetic field. They move photons somehow. They allow them to perturbate. I mean, it's ether all over the place. And yet he's complaining that they're two particle. When everything they talk about revolves around things that aren't in a position and that are waving. And yet he's complaining because they won't say the word counter space or because they won't say the word ether. But they're clearly describing an ether in every way. They're completely dependent on some ethery notions. All of their major forces, from virtual photon to bent space, is ethery. So he, you know, his side is totally won conventional physics over, and he's complaining. How do two light beams, the incident ray and the reflected ray, well, they don't happen at the, you know, one photon does either one thing. It reflects or it refracts. But, you know. Destructively interfere when out of phase by 180 degrees if it's not a wave. Well, again, you say they destructively interfere. Where's your proof that that's what they do? They change an angle. There's no evidence that the photon destructively interferes and it disappears from reality. I mean, in waves, the destructive interference means two forces, one going up and one going down, counter each other, and they release all of their momentum as energy and become flat. So two movements counteract each other to create flat. That doesn't happen in photons. Photons don't negate each other and turn into nothing. So I get it. So how do I answer a question based on, well, then how do, if unicorns don't exist, then how come you know, something, I don't know how to say. I mean, your whole premise is you're going to ask me about how you glue horns on unicorns or something. Why would I glue a horn on a unicorn? So there's absolutely no reason that a photon has to destructively anything. There's no reason. Each individual, like the single photon experiment demonstrates, is that each photon takes a path. And yes, it's probabilistic that each photon is facing a different obstacle course. There's an obstacle course. Some photons hit this finger, some hit this finger, some go in between the fingers. So it just depends, and the obstacle course is moving. So each photon is kind of subjected to a probability of hitting a finger. There's interferometer experiments. Who cares? I've already played them. I've already demonstrated what an interferometer's flaws are on YouTube, where the light is no longer. Prove it. That's just absolutely nonsense. It takes a path back to the laser beam. That's what the MIT experiment demonstrates. There's conservation. One beam goes out this way, the other beam goes right back to the laser. So go ahead, prove your case. Show me the link. How does the light suddenly disappear? It doesn't disappear. So show me a link where light disappears, and I'll show you where they made a mistake. But if you're going to make assertions, you're going to have to prove them. You're going to have to provide links or titles to videos or something that I can look up to demonstrate why you're wrong. Because you won't find evidence of any of that crap. These are assumptions you people make about its behavior. There's perfectly viable counter explanations for the phenomenon.
Are you atomist? The most evil word is the word ether. Now, when it comes to Mother Nature, and of course, Mother Nature is not a person. We're talking about natura naturans, right?
The way he always does this, throws this stupid ancient Greek crap into this fucking conversation. I mean, it's just such a waste of time. Like anybody knows what naturans means. Who the fuck? Well, nobody knows, Ken. You're just being a pompous douche. You know, so because I know a few words in Spanish, I should throw those in. I know a few German words. I think I can say jerk off in Chinese, makahai. What do you know? What the fuck? What does that mean? Oh, it doesn't mean a damn thing. It just wastes people's fucking time.
Mother Nature doesn't give a crap if you call it 0-point energy or the ether. Or...
Why do you give a crap then? So if nature doesn't give a crap, why are you obsessed with the fact that you've got them talking about waves in fields and you're complaining that they're not paying proper title to your ether, when that's exactly what they're basically saying is it's waves in ether. They are etherists. Clearly. I mean, overtly.
Counter space or a non-Cartesian inertia. The original definition of inertia, not the current connotation of inertia. The ether is absolutely undeniable. Interesting little experiment that you could do. I was trying to think, you know, like without having a bunch of equipment as far as proving the ether, what's the most simple way to prove the ether? Like you could have like a little bar bet. Okay, but your buddies would actually have to look up the complex, or not that complex.
So a bar bet. So I should go bet somebody based on Ken Wheeler's assumption, like he has done the experiment or something. Like somehow he knows this for a fact when he knows none of this for a fact. It's just nonsense. And why would you suggest an easy experiment and not do the experiment yourself to prove your point? I mean, it's just an amazing crap. Yeah, you can't post links in the chat, so you have to post the title. But I'm just saying, I've already seen all the MIT laser videos, especially the ones from 1964 or whatever the fuck they were, or 70 something, whatever. The one with the big hydrogen laser or whatever, helium laser. So there's no disappearing. You're not gonna, you're not gonna win this argument. I'm just letting you know, it's just not gonna happen because I've already seen all the videos.
Equations for calculating magnetic field strength and its variance at distance. In other words, how far you get away from a magnet, right? Now let's just say we were in outer space. A vacuum, outer space is not a complete and total vacuum, but we don't even have the air to contend with, no oxygen and nitrogen molecules. So let's just...
Yeah, well, that's not going to stop magnetism anyway, so it's sort of irrelevant. There's a precise length for the interferometer legs at which 100% of the light goes back to the laser. No. It has to be about angles. To go back to the laser, for 100% to go back to the laser from both legs would be retarded. Obviously, the light, how do I explain this to somebody who's retarded? But the paths it never does that. The light never, both sides don't go black at the same time. So if you take the two lengths and you project them the same direction, so if you take the one going this way and you take the one going that way, and you just bend the one going this way, and you project them to the same point, you'll see that when one is on, one is off. They're never both off at the same time or both on at the same time. So that's just bullshit.
Say this experiment is done in outer space. We could do this on Earth, obviously. So all you need is a decently large magnet, like a 2-inch by 2-inch by 1-inch. You get those for $40 and a neodymium iron boron.
Well, I never said both outputs go back. The point is the light is always conserved. So whether it goes back through the laser or it goes back to the target, it doesn't matter. There's a path it takes. When there's a mirror reflecting the light, and the light can pass through, so it's a beam splitter, and you're only detecting one path. The other path still has light going through it. 50% of the light still going the other way. You're just not detecting it. But the light didn't die.
N50 Gauss is a block magnet. I got a pile of them.
So he's got a pile of the magnets.
They're really dangerous. They're
so we don't have really dangerous, powerful N55 $250 magnets. So why don't, or whatever they are. So why don't you do the experiment, Ken? Maybe I'll bet you, Ken, you can't do the experiment. I'll bet you whatever. Go ahead, give me a number. $1,000. You want to bet $1,000, Ken? I'll bet you $1,000 you can't do your experiment.
So much fun to experiment with. And like an old tube TV set, you know the type. Just turn it to a black channel or a white channel or a static channel. Okay, you could step the hell back up about 20 feet. But let's first.
Okay, so 20 feet with a magnet you can hold in your hand. At 20 feet. This is how much science this idiot doesn't know.
Start off by saying something here. Speaking of magnetic field intensity, how it varies with distance, we're talking about like the maximum distance on that 2-inch by 2-inch by 1-inch.
Okay, so he's got a 2-inch by 2-inch by 1-inch magnet. A little magnet you hold in your hand. And he's saying at 20 feet, he can affect a TV screen. It's preposterous nonsense.
It's measuring in inches, okay? In other words, how much influence we've got is about yay far. If you actually apply the calculation for magnetic field.
Yes, you actually apply the R² rule, which is actually for magnets, a dipole, it's R³. So it falls off really fast. Let's see what this comment is. It's growing. Let's see. Okay. I guess I have to make this bigger, so I can't read it. I never said both outputs go back. Optics, destructive interference. Where does you already did this? What's going on in this video? So again, you're saying what's going on in what video? There's no video. You can't post video links. You have to post the title, and I'm obviously not going onto the video right now, so there's no point in asking questions now. Oh, God, you're such a fucking cunt. Neither leg has the ring pattern anyways. Says you. I did it on my fucking porch with a piece of dirty glass and created the ring pattern. And blocking either leg removes the pattern. Bullshit. So the pattern has to do with both legs combining together. Well, I did the experiment on my porch and demonstrated that not to be a fact. It actually creates the ring pattern. The one going back to the laser actually has the pattern in it also. If you take it a little bit out of alignment so it doesn't go right back into the laser, you can create a nice ringed pattern right behind the laser. So, wrong again. Let's see. I don't know why that compresses that way. That is irritating. Let's see. Oh, damn it. So you're typing the same thing again. Optics, destructive interference. Where does the light go? So that's the title. Fine. Okay, I'll go look at it. But again, I'm quite sure the light never disappears. It's never destroyed. The photons always go somewhere. Every single one of them goes somewhere. So your argument is just crap.
Influence, okay, or strength at distance. We're talking about yay far, right? Okay, so.
All right, yes, by the R cubed rule, it would be insanely fast that the field breaks down just to double the distance of the radius of the magnet, and you're already 4 times weaker. 16, it's just going to multiply. At 20 feet, there's no possibility that you have any influence that matters. And clearly, even if you had an influence, the point is you're now just a point source at distance. And the distance difference between the screen over here and the screen over, like the center of the screen, would be the straightest line, you'd argue. But it doesn't matter at that great a distance because the difference between the two would be so slight that it couldn't possibly matter. So you should be able to affect the entire screen. Obviously not going to happen. I mean, this is an amazingly dumb video for him to make.
That's the maximum distance which we have the ability to have a variance, like in a Gauss meter, of influence of static field. Now, an active field, of course, is in relationship to Maxwellian field equations, a output over a given period of time in a known vector.
No, it just has to do with the magnetic field changing. So, again, just more crap. We are changing the pressure. Changes in pressure creates the magnetism. Yeah, that's good. And the fact that this always happens in conductors means that the conductor neutralizes it as soon as it's created. So that's why it has to keep on moving.
Of course, the output would be joules, watts, volts, so on and so forth. Maxwellian field equations, of course, never define field. The interesting thing about the ether, however, and I'm going to get to the experiment very, very quickly here, is that...
They're never going to get to it, but anyway. The interesting thing about the ether. Oh.
The modern physicists also invented the ether. However, it's the most evil word to them. They absolutely deny it outright. With the Michelson-Morley experiment, never denied the ether. It's a completely absurd equation. Experiment. Absolutely as absurd as the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment.
So comparing a real experiment to a thought experiment is kind of ludicrous. And he's not going to tell us why Michelson-Morley was ludicrous. I don't think he has a clue. Yeah, nothing new there. Okay, good.
Completely baseless and groundless nonsense. But anyway, supposedly Michelson-Morley experiment refuted the ether, but of course it did no such thing. But modern scientists actually who cannot reconcile EPR, look up EPR if you like, or instantaneous action at a distance.
Right, okay, so instantaneous action at a distance, invented by who, where, why should they resolve that? Why should they believe in any of that? There's absolutely no evidence of it. Faster than light communication would exist then. It's just nonsense. So yes, go ahead, propose the existence of something for which you have absolutely no credible evidence exists. And again, he gets rewarded for this. There'll be, the video no doubt has hundreds of likes and, by comparison, 300 to 35 for an insanely horseshit video.
They still admit to the ether, except they actually hide it in euphemisms. They call it quantum foam or quantum fluid, or there's about...
They call it bent space, and they call it fields. What can a field be except an ether? What the hell else could the fucking field be?
About 6 different things that modern quantum and the physicists actually refer to the ether without using the word ether, because the...
All right, so he's saying more crap now. Same thing. Okay.
Ether is literally the big evil Satan/devil word, and so you just don't say that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know why that is for them. Like I said, when they're so obviously happy to create fake mediums that don't have any description, they seem very comfortable making dark matter, making all kinds of wacky shit. So I don't know why they don't want to just come right out and say, yes, we believe in ether.
Just don't speak the word Satan, in the middle of church, right? It's the same thing with the word ether. Its connotations are literally that deep. And of course, there's been 1,000 different philosophies and metaphysics on the ether dating back to the ancient Greeks and even further. But the ether is, of course,
yes, is of course just what silly people who want to make the universe more complicated than it needs to be decide to create it. But otherwise, most people don't need to put their bread, into little squares and then throw it into soup. Most people don't need to say, "What do I need the soup for?" You don't need it. It doesn't serve any purpose. No point in making a fast car into a slow boat.
ever present and undeniable. Now to the experiment. All you have to do is have a tube TV set, old tube TV set, and one of those little 2-inch magnets, or even one larger than that. Now, we know that given magnetic influence with distance, you've only got influence about that far. That's off a static field. All you actually have to do is sit there and wave that magnet 2 inches or larger.
Okay, so 2 inches or larger. Yeah, so why don't you just say, well, no, it has to really, the magnet has to be as big as a Volkswagen. Why don't you just admit the truth?
At 20 feet plus,
20 feet plus.
If you actually have a little spotting scope at, like, say, 30 feet plus or even 40.
Well, maybe they have a friend who can actually have a camera, a macro lens right on the TV. Yeah. Some people have friends, Ken.
You can still see the influence. You can actually get back with a spotting scope, since you can't see the TV set at 40 plus feet, not really fine detail, like I get my eye up against this computer.
Yeah, well, I could just put the magnet on a pendulum and let it just swing back and forth, and then I could just walk right up to the TV 20 feet away with my magnifying glass and look right at the pixels and see if I can see any of them waving because of the magnets waving. And guess what? I'm not going to. Do the experiment, Ken. I'll pay you $1,000 to successfully perform the experiment. Go ahead. Give it a shot.
But 40, 50 feet back with a spotting scope.
40 or 50 feet back now. I mean, it just gets more and more insanely stupid. And he gets rewarded for something this sloppy. This is the sloppiest, stupidest. I haven't seen something this dumb from anything but like 6th graders or something. This is so fucking bad.
Okay? You can wave that magnet just like this, and then you will actually see influence. Now, of course, the TV tube is nothing other than an electrostatic generator. Okay, so
electrostatic generator, which is just idiotic. It's obviously an electron gun. That's another thing about the electrons coming from space and stuff. See, I mean, the space shuttle could just put some phosphorus, a little screen up, and it could just detect all the electrons being shot from the sun, but there aren't any, so it can't.
A vacuum tube striking a RGB array, depends on which type it is. I'm just talking about an old tube Sony or some old tube TV set, which you probably have one in your basement. Most people have thrown them away now. If you ever want to have a bet with somebody, say, let's just go off. Well,
again, it's just such a weird video. If you ever want to have a bet with somebody that you're going to lose, okay, you want to lose your money, guaranteed, do a really dumb experiment where there's absolutely no way you'll have any hope.
Calculations for magnetic influence with distance. It falls off completely as probably measurable about yay far. I said, what if I could actually cause a magnetic influence, improve the ether? And if you're able to go into space in total vacuum, someone would say, well, this is the influence of the magnet upon the air molecules, the oxygen and nitrogen, and it's transferring. That's not what's happening. But even if you were to go in a total vacuum out into space with a tube TV set, you and your space suit, you would still see the exact same influence. You'd actually see it more because you'd have no influence of the dielectric permittivity and the magnetic permeability of the nitrogen and oxygen separating between you and the tube TV set. What this does when you're actually...
It's such a tiny amount of it that it doesn't really matter. It's not going to have any effect on the magnet from that distance. It's a tiny bit of matter. So its permittivity, its paramagnetism is so weak that it can't possibly have an effect.
Actually waving the magnet, you're setting up a field perturbation and a strain in the hysteresis of the ether.
The hysteresis. Hysteresis is a form on a chart. A hysteresis is a description of things that, start at one point and are maintained and can't get back to their origin and stuff like that.
Repeat that very succinctly, okay? Not using like gobbledygook words here. You're setting up a strain in the hysteresis and the...
Not using gobbledygook words. And then he says hysteresis. Is everybody supposed to know what you mean by hysteresis? Something that happens over a period of time, and that somehow has something to do with what that magnet's going to do to that electron gun.
Stasis of the ether. No different than a little bitty person. Well, what sort of influence does like a little child have in the middle of a pool? You know, how much influence? This little child's arms are about yay long, right?
Oh, like the arm length matters now. And clearly you could know that a gnat, the waves that a gnat makes on one end of the pool are not going to be decipherable on the other end of the pool. If there's other waves in the pool, of course.
Right? How much of an influence could a child have in the middle of a pool, flapping his arms? You know, of course, the water would be analogous to the ether. Well, quite a long way if you actually had the hysteresis of the ether, in this case, the calm waters of a large Olympic-sized swimming pool. You know, a little child could flap his arms and create little waves against.
Right, and so we know that's not what magnetism does. We know that the waves of magnetism, if you want to call them that, whatever the energy is, the whole point is that we know how much it weakens over distance. So you're just denying the truth.
The edges of the pool, you know, 50, 100 feet out, right? Even further. You could actually back up. Of course, you'd have to step outside of your house or put the TV set down the end of the street. Okay? You can, as far as I've seen it, has been 80 plus feet.
All right, so he says he's seen this. So nobody videotaped it. Nobody did this for posterity. This experiment that proves it's all a lie about magnets. They can send their energy huge, gigantic distances. A little 2-inch magnet 80 feet away can affect things. It's a preposterous claim. I mean, insanely wrong.
A little spotting scope or a pair of binoculars, right? I'm sure you got a pair of binoculars. Put it down the street. Okay, take the binoculars up to your eyes. Do this with the magnet, right? You will see the influence on that electrostatic dielectric.
Prove it. I'll pay you $1,000 to prove that. Prove it. For $1,000. Prove it. Well, let's have a Patreon page, and we'll collect a whole big pile of money that Ken gets if he can actually prove that a 2-inch magnet can affect a TV 100 feet away, or 20.
Electrostatic, same thing. Projection on the phosphorus coated screen of that old tube TV set, you know, from 50, 60, 80 feet away. If you want to stick the TV set down at the end of the street, your neighbors might look at you.
60, 80 feet away. I mean, it's insane. I mean, 20 feet was already insane. Now he's 80 feet away. Insane claim.
Like you're a nut job. But, you know, this runs contrary to what science says about the influence of distance of a given.
Right. So you're going to prove all the scientists wrong. You're going to prove all of them. I mean, Maxwell even. All those guys were assholes and idiots. Because they didn't realize that, no, magnets don't have this problem with their field strength dropping off. It stays vital all the way, 80 feet away.
Given Gaussian flux. Magnet, it's both.
I don't even know how this proves the ether, actually. You know, that's the funny part, right? Because it's like, how does this prove the existence of ether? If you prove magnets don't really lose their energy, how have you proven there's an ether?
Its volume and what it's rated at in a Gauss meter. So this magnet is, 0.4 Tesla, and it has a volume of, 40 square centimeters. Actually, that's not the volume of a 2 by 2 by 1 inch. Point being is that the ether does exist. I'm trying to think of a really simple experiment that you could use to prove to people with enough.
So again, and he doesn't bother doing it. He says he has a simple experiment that proves the existence of an ether, and he doesn't do the experiment. Stunning.
Ungiven math of magnetic field influence. This, of course, is not possible. But science doesn't admit to the ether, but the ether is, everything is the ether.
So again, he's saying the ether has something to do with this, but I don't know how, again, how do you, magnetism proves there's an ether? So if I prove magnetism goes further, I've proven there's an ether? It's just crazy.
Absolutely everything is, the ether is undeniable.
It's unprovable. There's no evidence for it. It's unreasonable to believe in it when there's no evidence for it.
to deny the ether is like trying to enjoin a self-negation paradox, because subject precedes the object of negation. Denying the ether is absolutely ridiculous.
No, you always deny things until there's some piece of evidence indicating it. There's absolutely zero evidence. Denying is exactly what you should do. You should say, no, and show me. Show me. Show me.
Because science itself has never defined a field. Maxwellian field equations, for example, only define a field over a vector with a period of time with a given result.
Yes, well, Maxwell was an idiot etherist like you, and so that's why he said silly things. Frankly.
Maxwellian field equations never define a field itself, in itself, by it.
Yes, because they don't understand what force is. It's not a field. It's force emanating from the magnet. It's real force being transferred between things in the universe. Real force moves from one thing to another thing. Real force, not fieldy stuff.
So, what is a field? Ancient Greek word kora. Modern science has never defined a field. Never. You will find no definition of a field anywhere. Go to Wikipedia, go anywhere. Just find a definition of field. The answer for what a field is very simplex. It's an ether perturbation.
Fine. It's ether. The field itself is ether. Can't be a perturbation in ether. So it's ether itself.
Which takes on 4 different modalities, depending on how you look at it. We have gravity, electricity, magnetism, dielectricity.
So, right. So they have 4 different ethers. You have one ether that does all 4 things. Isn't that all cute? No, it's depressing. You're fucking idiots.
So really only 2 fields. There's dielectric and magnetic, and ultimately that's reducible to 1 because...
dielectric, right? Which isn't even a thing, right? It's just not there's no such thing as dielectricity. There's electricity. There's the phenomenon of atoms exchanging pressure.
Magnetism is the extrapolation of the dielectric field with the loss of inertia, as manifest as force in motion. Centrifugal divergence, i.e. force in motion. Of course, the dielectric is counterspatial.
By nature of its existence, a force must be in motion. Can't apply force if it doesn't move.
Magnetism is spatial. 100% of the universe only has volume due to magnetism and magnetism only.
Whatever that means. The universe only has volume because of magnetism. What does that even mean? It obviously, in my opinion, has volume because the material things are separated.
The ether is an absolute. The ether is undeniable. Even the idiot scumbags of quantum...
So I keep saying it's undeniable, yet there's no evidence for it. So it's like saying Sasquatch is undeniable. UFOs are undeniable. We should just believe in stuff for which there's no evidence. And he gets rewarded for saying shit like that.
Mechanics believe in the ether, but they don't use the word ether. They call it quantum fluid.
They call it bent space. They call it the electric field. They call it the magnetic field.
I can't remember the 4 other names that they use, but they still admit to the ether because you can't explain the universe with bumping particles.
Yes, you can. Really easy. It comes out all checkerboard simple. But you don't have the intelligence or the imagination to have figured it out. Ha ha ha. Dumbass.
Absolutely impossible. The only thing that can explain, like light slowing down, of course light doesn't move at all, it's a rate of induction.
Yeah, it's whatever he says, light doesn't move at all, which doesn't make any sense at all. It's obviously the perturbations move, so it must be moving. But I guess what he's saying is it's just like water waves. The water doesn't really move, it's just going up and down. Just silly. But again, the speed argument, where just such a false argument, as if physics actually thinks light slows down when it really doesn't. Most intelligent physicists know the light doesn't really slow down. It's just being transmitted through the substance, and it takes time to be transmitted. Just like when light goes through a fiber optic cable, it's obviously not traveling a straight line, so it doesn't move as fast as it could if it did travel a straight line. Duh.
Speeding back up without breaking the law of conservation of energy after leaving.
So again, it doesn't slow down, so it doesn't need to speed up. So that's just stupid.
Glass or water is ether. Everything is capacitance, resistance, magnetic permeability, and dielectric permittivity.
You just said everything was something else a little while ago.
You can't explain these things with damn particles.
Yes, you can.
The universe is not bumping particles.
Yes, it is.
That's why I call quantum the cult of bumping particles.
And again, that just points out how you're more retarded than even I think. Because clearly they don't believe in bumping particles. They believe in Heisenberg and wave functions.
When you deny the ether, okay, and modern physics is only a theory. When you deny the ether...
And yours is what? Worse. Yours is a silly fable with absolutely no evidence. At least they have a tiny shreds of evidence. You don't have any for your nonsense. Zero.
Then you must replace it with something else. And that's something that it has been replaced with. It's not my opinion. This is what they say. It is bumping particles. It's the cult of bumping particles. The only problem...
Well, why don't you describe where they think particles are bumping into each other? Just give me somewhere where they actually believe that, because they clearly don't.
What that is it's illogical, it's contradictory, it doesn't explain given phenomena. Only the ether explains that.
How does it explain anything? It doesn't explain anything. It just adds a silly, unnecessary layer to simple force transfers.
Only the ether can explain not breaking the law of conservation of energy, of light speeding back up, and countless other phenomena, instantaneous action at a distance,
I'd be curious how your ether explains how the perturbation speeds up without violating conservation laws. That would be interesting. So go ahead. Explain how your compressed ether, the photon slows down and then it speeds up when it gets into the uncompressed ether. Well, how does that not violate conservation laws?
Electromagnetic retardation. That's what it's actually called. EMR, electromagnetic retardation. The universe is extremely simple, but it's not simplex. But the picture that's painted of cosmic mechanics by modern physics and quantum is illogical, absurd, and the brainchild of a bunch of atomistic...
Yeah, and the parts that are absurd and stupid are the exact parts you believe in, which is the irony here.
Insane fools. The ether is undeniable.
It's easily denied because there's no evidence for it.
I guess that's the end of this video. There's a lot more I'd like to say, but I've been so damn busy today. I got like 10,000 things to do, and it's already 12 midnight. I never have enough time to do everything that I wanted.
Yes, likewise. Same problem here. Now let's watch this silly video from the silly person. Oh, so here we go. I've already played these videos. I've actually played them. There's no light getting destroyed here. So again, why are you posting a link to a video that demonstrates exactly what I've said? Amazing.
The arm for the interferometer, I block one arm, and then I block this arm. You can see again that there is light coming out, but it's when I have the beams interfering, then I can get the field to go completely dark as in heat. So it's not that there is no light there, it's just because they are interfering, and the interference is destructive interference.
Yeah, and the light's going back the other way. There's no surprise here.
So the question is, where does the light go when we have total darkness coming out?
Right, it goes right back to the laser.
Let's examine the interferometer a little bit more closely. Let me remind you again what's going on in here. The light enters the interferometer and gets reflected by this beam splitter onto this mirror, and then this mirror reflects light back into the beam splitter, portion of which leaves the interferometer, and then the other part, the other 50%, goes back in this direction into the source. The other arm, again, reflects the light back into the beam splitter, and then we have the reflection of the beam splitter then interferes with beam coming from the other arm, and that's what we've been seeing on the screen. But let's keep track of the beam that passes through the beam splitter, again back into the source, to interfere with the beam coming from this arm. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to use this beam splitter here, and then I will place it over here so that I can reflect the light out here, so I can look at and monitor the beam going back into the source.
Right. So all you'll find out is now the monitors the beam. So half the light will go through, so it cuts the light to the total experiment in half. And what you'll find out is when it goes dark on one side, it goes light on the other side. So the photons are always preserved. There's no destroyed photons. And this really just, again, has to do with how light refracts through the beam splitter. Jeez. So anyway, I'm not going to play the whole thing again. I mean, I'm just guaranteeing you, what's observed is the light goes back. He'll pick up the light from the new beam splitter, he'll shoot it backwards again, and he'll be able to detect it on a card. When it goes dark, it goes light. When it goes light, it goes dark. No interference necessary. No interference between photons and photons. And let's also understand he's using a lens, so he's taken the rings out. He's focusing on just the center portion, so that should be understood. So the two beams, one beam is spreading through the whole experiment, the other beam only spreads at the very end. The two beams are being combined in the sense the stuff comes back to create the one dot, but that one dot isn't the real pattern. The real pattern has the rings in it. So all he's doing is changing whether the center goes light or the center goes dark. So it has this look like he's got a hole, like this is the only light coming in, the only light coming out of the experiment he's showing. That little hole wasn't the whole of the light from the experiment, because he's used a lens to only focus on the center dot. So the whole pattern doesn't disappear. The pattern, as everybody knows, switches from light to dark in the center as you move the mirrors. Anyway, I've done videos on interferometry, so you can search my videos for those titles, and it provides some explanations of this stuff. I suppose it's a subject that needs to be revisited. But the real problem is in the notion of a beam splitter. That's where this whole thing goes south from the beginning, is this idea that you can move photons, deflect them 90 degrees from their path harmlessly, and that you still have two beams that are identical, because you don't. So anyway, I suppose that's enough. Here we have a comment. If it's an overlay, here we go. Let's see. Neither leg has the ring pattern anyways. No, see, that's where you're wrong. That's what the lens is doing. So if you watch the beginning of the video, he'll explain. He has a lens there. And the only thing the lens is there to do is to focus on the center of the pattern. And the blocking either leg removes the pattern, so the pattern has to do with both legs combining together. So again, you're just not understanding that that's the job of the lens. He's taken the ringed pattern out and is just doing the center. Optics, destructive interference, where does the light go? This is, okay, we already did that. What about the part in the beginning where the light on the screen goes completely dark? So here he says, it's just, okay, there's no point. You're not getting what the lens is there for. I mean, maybe he'll explain. I mean, let's just go back to the beginning, see if he explains what the lens is there for. But he's explained it in other videos. So if you watch the other videos in this series, there's one of the videos where he points out that the lens is to focus on the central maxima.
Materials from hundreds of MIT courses. Visit MIT OpenCourseWare at ocw.mit.edu.
In this demonstration, we're going to explore a very curious phenomena in two-beam interference, which is, where does the light go when we have destructive interference or a dark field? And we'll use a normal Michelson interferometer to study this phenomenon.
So by dark field, he means the dark bands in the pattern.
Here it is. We have the laser here, the beam from the laser being reflected by mirror here, and then we go through this lens, then from the lens onto this mirror, and then from this mirror, then we enter the Michelson interferometer. Here is one arm of the interferometer, and here's the other arm, and then the...
So just note, he didn't say what that other lens was there for. So again, we have a lens without an explanation.
The beams leaving the interferometer.
This is the important lens here, the big one.
We'll go onto this mirror, through this lens, and then onto this.
So you can see a little tiny ring on there, right? See, there's still a little ring on there.
Green.
So he hasn't wiped out all the rings, but he's wiped out most of them by focusing, spreading the center. He's magnifying the image. So he's just magnifying it like a microscope. You can only see a certain amount. He's
now, as you can see
altered the field
on the
of
screen,
view.
we have circular fringes, and at the inset we've enhanced the effect so that you can see the fringes a bit better. Now what I'm going to do is move this mirror here slowly until I equalize the arms of the interferometer, so I can make the diameter of the central fringe very large. As you can see here.
Right, so he can make it very large. So again, he's saying it's equalizing the two arms, where it's not equalizing the two arms. He's just making the beam that's spreading the dominant beam. So he's going back further to create more spread. Okay, so it's the beam splitter is diffracting the beam, diverging the beam. And so the further back he goes, the more he can diverge that beam, and which enlarges the pattern, so he can enlarge it till it's nothing, till all the rings disappear except for the center maxima.
The diameter of the central fringe is getting bigger, and then as I get closer and closer to equal path length, you can see now the size of the central fringe is getting even bigger until I reach somewhere over here,
right,
which is approximately where the paths are.
So he's wiped out, again, he's just wiped out the rest of the pattern. And it just has to do with that fact of, again, the divergence. But he hasn't explained, again, that's what this lens is doing.
Are equal. And then you can see that if I press now over here, I can change the path length difference or the misalignment to give me a uniform dark field. As you can see, again, I'm going to press again here, and you'll see that the field goes completely dark. And then
right, so the point is regardless, this isn't the whole pattern. So the whole pattern was there, you saw it, and he just wiped it out. He's looking at the center, and that's it. And the rest of it still goes the other way. So when this is light, the other side is dark. When the other side is light, this side is dark. Nothing interesting to see here. Let's see, if it's an overlay of two patterns, how come you only see one ring pattern in the end? So again, it's not one ring, it's just the center. And the middle spot goes dark based on leg distance. So again, the leg distance just changes how big the pattern's going to be. Okay, didn't realize that was just the center of the field, thought it was the whole beam. So, okay, thank you. I mean, it is confusing. Frankly, I had to watch these things a few times, and you have to watch the other videos to see some of the, I mean, I don't want to call it chicanery, but he doesn't really, like I said, he really doesn't explain what the lenses are for, right? There's two lenses in this experiment. He didn't tell you what they're there for. It's a laser beam. It's a big, long, laser. Why does it need lenses? What are the lenses doing? So I'm just saying that, yeah, obviously he's trying to make a point, and he's doing it his way to emphasize a certain aspect of this, but it does imply things that just aren't, it's just not, it's not right. I mean, they're really good videos. I mean, frankly, I learned a lot watching them, but it's just, like all it's, some of this stuff you really have to think of and pick at it a little bit, and they don't do any picking. That's the real problem here. So anyway, getting late, and I really do have to go. So, till next time and such, thank you for what participation there is. And again, I am looking for somebody who wishes to converse on these subjects in some debate-ish kind of manner in terms of arguing the strength of the evidence and what should be reasonably, what can be called a reasonable interpretation of what the evidence indicates. Something like that. So, till the next time, such. At least the camera should be a little better. I mean, even if the frame rate isn't better, at least its contrast is better. Hopefully. Maybe. Mostly. But. Very good. You there. You're not doing anything impressive so far, buddy. You're looking for a get kicked out of the room thingy? Is that what you're looking for? But you there, question mark. Well, I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to waste my time waiting for what it means. You've never debunked the quantum eraser. I don't need to debunk it. It's a joke in itself. The complexity of the experiment is its own debunk. In the stupidity of the claims they're making about what they're measuring and how they're measuring it debunks the experiment. And the fact that they're using, in most cases, polarization, which they haven't even proven, okay, that doesn't affect photons, that somehow polarization filters are benign. They don't affect the photons at all, don't change them at all. When rational theory understands that the only reason why the center one can possibly create more light by putting a third filter in is because it's obviously changing the polarization of the light. I already have made a video about it. I've mentioned the flaws in polarization filter theory many times. I played a video, Veritasium video, I think, on the subject. And pointed out how there's no mystery here. When you put the third filter in, okay, there's no mystery that obviously the third filter is bending the light a little bit, so now it can get through the next filter. It's not as far off. Yeah, well, I don't use terms like quantum eraser. Use polarization, or use a term like what else is related? Interference, or let's see, Alan Aspect. Maybe I might have him in in one of the videos. Maybe. That'd be a pretty old video, so I don't know if my argument's going to be the best in the world then. But regardless, the point is all those experiments, I mean, you'd have to, you know, we're not privy to any one of the little black boxes, so to speak. The magic crystal that creates the two photons, I mean, all the mirrors, all the rest of that crap, and they all say they're all benign. Mirrors don't cause wave function collapse. And there's absolutely no reason to think mirrors don't cause wave function collapse. Why wouldn't they? Anyway, so whatever. Can't do anything. If you want to, like I said, they can't accurately describe what happens when there's just two slits, two little slits, a single slit. They can't accurately describe what the pattern looks like. And you trust these people with these very complex experiments. I'd say you're bad to trust them. Anyway, till next time and such.